Hello. In this video, we'll talk about credit cards, installment loans, and amortization. And this is truly a case of buyer be aware. The first thing we'll talk about is something known as revolving credit. And this is the kind of credit you get when you have a credit card. When you have credit card debt, there's a minimum monthly payment required, but there's no fixed amount required to ensure that the loan is paid off within a certain number of years. So you have some flexibility in how much you pay, and because of that, it may take you a very long time to pay it off. You'll be quoted an annual interest rate, but you change it over to a monthly rate to calculate the simple interest that's paid on the average daily balance, and we'll learn how to calculate the average daily balance. And interest is paid on your purchases if you don't pay the balance in full. However, if you pay the balance off within a certain number of days, typically around 20 days, you don't have to pay any interest at all. But if you do not pay the balance in full, then you have to pay interest on your charges. However, if you take a cash advance on a credit card, your interest charges begin the moment that the cash advance is made. So let's talk about how you find the minimum monthly payment that's due on a credit card. To do this, we have to compute the average daily balance. Then we'll use the simple interest formula to find the interest that's due for the month based on this average daily balance that we found. We'll find the total due on the first day of the next month by adding the interest we found to the balance on the last day of the previous month. And then in order to find the minimum payment, we'll use the method that's stated. Typically, 1/36 of the balance is due. Sometimes you may be quoted that 1% or 2% is due. And we'll do that by taking 1/36 of the new balance, which is the balance after the previous month's interest has been added. So here's a credit card scenario where we have to find the minimum payment. Let's say we have a beginning balance on February 1st of $10,600. And that the card carries a 12% annual interest rate. There are some new charges made. February 6th, there's a charge of $400. February 20th, a charge of $174.43. And on February 24th, $117.25 is charged. Then a payment of $250 is made on February the 14th. Interest is charged using this average daily balance method, and the minimum payment is 1/36 of the beginning monthly balance. Now we're going to use this information to find the minimum payment for the next month, which is March. So here's a table that's been constructed, and on this table you will see all of the credit card activity for the month. So it's important, every time there is an activity on the card, we must have an entry in our table. So of course we have the beginning balance of $10,600 on February the 1st. And then over here in the smaller table, February 6th, a charge of $400. February 14th, a credit of $250. February 20th, a charge of $174.43. And February 24th, the charge of $117.25. So each one of those is noted here in the table on the appropriate date. The balance will go up or down depending on whether it's a charge or a credit. So after $10,600, this next entry of $11,000 comes from taking $10,600, adding $400 to get $11,000. Then $11,000 is reduced by $250 to get $10,750 because the $250 was a payment. Then the balance of $10,750 changes by adding $175.43 to get to $10,925.43. Then the last activity on the card was to charge an additional $117.25, so the balance is now $11,042.68. But it's also important to note that each one of these balances is carried for a number of days. So we have to next calculate the number of days that the credit card carries the particular balance after the activity has occurred. So from February 1st through the 5th, the balance stayed unchanged at $10,600. Now that's 5 days. That's the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Now you can get that by subtracting 6 minus 1 to get the total of 5 days. And then you can see that the next entry at 400 changes the balance to 11,000, and it stays that way for 8 days. 14 minus 6 gives us 8 days. From the 14th to the 20th, that's 6 days. Now remember, it's actually from the 14th to the 19th, but we can subtract to find that number of days. And from the 24th to the 20th is 4 days. Now you have to be really careful here, because from the 24th to February 28th, which is the end of the month, it's not 4 days, it's 5 days, because we actually count the 28th. In each of these other cases, we did not count the actual date that's posted here. From the 1st to the 6th is 5 days, but that doesn't include the 6th. It includes the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So the number of days from the 24th to the 28th is 4 days plus the 28th, which is the 5th. That's the 24th, the 25th, the 26th, the 27th, and the 28th. And if you have any doubt whatsoever, count it out just like this to make sure that you have the right number of days listed at your number of days at the balance. If you get this column wrong, you're not going to be able to calculate the average daily balance correctly. So once we've figured out the balance as the activity changes and the number of days at that balance, we next need to multiply the unpaid balance times the number of days at that balance to come up with the total amount, so that we can eventually divide by the total number of days and get back to an average daily balance. So in order to get the 53,000 that you see here, $10,600 times 5 equals 53,000. 11,000 times 8 equals 88,000. 10,750 times 6 is 64,500. 10,925.43 times 4 is $43,701.72. $11,042.68 times 5 days is $55,213.40. And so if you add all of these values together, you'll get a monthly total of $304,415.10. Now, you've not charged that much on the credit card. That is just the calculation that we need to find the average daily balance, because what we're going to do next is we're going to take this amount and divide it by the 28 days of the month. So the average of the daily balance, so we have to find the daily balance for every single day of the month and add it together, and that's what we've done here. And the average daily balance would be that total divided by 28 days. And that gives us an average daily balance of $10,871.97. And this is an important amount, because this is what is used to calculate the interest that is owed for this month of February. So we take our average daily balance, and to calculate the interest that's paid on March 1st, we use the simple interest formula. Now the simple interest formula is interest equals principal times rate times time. That's PRT. Keeping in mind that we had a 12% annual interest rate, which needs to be converted to a monthly interest rate because we're only paying the interest for February. That's a single month. So to change that annual rate over to a monthly rate, we divide by 12. So instead of 12% per year, it's 1% per month. So our interest will be our average daily balance, that's our principal in this case, times our rate, which is 1%, times 1 month, because our time here is for a single month, the month of February. So our figures are $10,871.97, that's our average daily balance, times our rate, 0.01, 1% is 0.01 as a decimal, times 1 month. And that turns out to be $108.72 due in interest for the previous month of February. That means that the balance due is $11,042.68 plus $108.72. Now let's go back to see where that $11,000 comes from. If you go back to your last table, the balance at the end of the month was $11,042.68. That's the balance on the last day of the month. So be very careful. Don't add the interest to the average daily balance. You must add the interest to the balance on the last day of the month. So that's where the $11,000 comes from. It's the balance on the last day of the month plus the interest. This gets us our new balance of $11,151.40. That's the amount that's due if you were to pay it full on March 1st. Remember, there will be no further interest charges if you pay this entire balance in full. But if you only pay the minimum monthly payment using the 136th plan, you take that amount, multiply it times 136, which is the same as dividing by 36. And you get a minimum monthly payment of $309.76. And that's to the nearest penny. That's the amount of your minimum monthly payment that's due. Now, if you pay just the minimum monthly payment, it won't take months. It will take years to pay off this credit card. That's one of the disadvantages of having what's called revolving credit, because you're not paying a balance such that it is paid off by a certain date. You're just required to pay a minimum payment. And for that reason, I'd like to take you to a website to show you a better way to manage your credit cards to make sure you're paying enough each month so that it can be paid off. So the website is http://money.cnn.com/magazines/money101/lesson9/index.htm. Pause the video for a couple of minutes and write this down if you'd like to visit the site. Now, at this site, you will see some information on how to control your personal debt. And this is CNN Money's Lesson 9 from Money 101. If you would like to go to the Money 101 homepage, there's a link here that will take you to the homepage. And there are a bunch of lessons here that might be of value to you. Budgeting, savings, investing, stocks, mutual funds, bonds, buying a house, Lesson 9, controlling debt, other things about retirement and insurance and buying cars, etc. So these are some very important lessons that you might find helpful. I know that I have. But the thing I want to point out to you here is this debt reduction planner, because it's a great calculator for helping you to pay off your credit cards in a faster way than what is required. So I'm going to just do an estimate, something similar to what we saw. So the credit card name, let's say it's a Visa. And let's say it's $11,000. That's approximately what we were looking at. The interest rate is 12%. And the minimum monthly payment was over $300. Let's just say it's $325. Now we have three options to pay this off. The minimum payment, the $325. How long does it take to pay off this credit card if you pay this minimum payment? So I click the button besides minimum payment and I select calculate. When I do this, I see that it takes 15 years and 1 month to pay off the credit card, even if I make no other charges. This is simply paying back what I already owe. And I pay over $5,000 in interest if I pay it back this way. 15 years to pay off that debt. Over $5,000 in interest if I pay just minimum payments. So let's look at a different scenario, because maybe we say, we don't want to pay it off in 15 years. We need to get this thing done. So let's say that we can scramble around and we can come up with an extra $50 a month. So we're going to pay $375. Let's recalculate it with an extra $50 a month. Look at the difference just $50 a month makes. Instead of 15 years and a month, it's 2 years and 11 months. It's less than 3 years. And instead of over $5,000 in interest, it's less than $2,000 in interest. So even just a little bit above the minimum payment can make a significant difference, because that amount above the minimum payment is going directly to the principal loan of that credit card, and it helps you reduce that principal much more quickly. And if you wanted to be debt-free by a certain time, you could pick this last button, and let's say we want to do it within 2 years. Maybe you're going to buy a house in 2 years and you want it paid off in 2 years. So let's recalculate with 2 years. You have to pay $512.68 a month in order to pay this off in 2 years. So I think you can find this website helpful if you have credit card debt. If you have more than one credit card, if you put in the name and the balance and the interest rate, it will tell you how to pay each one. It's going to have you pay the one with the highest interest rate first. It's going to tell you exactly how much you need to pay each month in order to pay this debt off, either with fixed payments or being debt-free by a certain deadline. So I've found this website to be very helpful, and I hope you do as well.